guys, it's Quills, and what you're seeing is a speed paint that I feel like wasn't my strongest and I was honestly wanting to delete. However, I feel like as an artist, it is really important to look back at some of your processes and artworks and like figure out partly what went wrong. Like, I know that sometimes you could look at the art piece itself and be like, okay, that's not my strongest, but I think it's also really important to delve deeper into like what went wrong, what process you kind of skipped or overlooked, what part that you accidentally took too long, and what part like kind of got to you. So I feel like this is what I'm gonna show, and I thought either way it was really good practice, so I thought it would be really good to at least critique myself in a nice way and maybe show you guys the critiquing process that I go through without being too harsh on myself. So one of the things that I feel like was my first mistake, well, okay, first of all, I'm drawing Valko from Love and Deepspace, by the way, if you guys can tell, which was a fandom that I think I got into through the back door. If you guys don't know what that means, it's basically like when you get into a fandom a very weird way, like not even the mainstream way. This is originally from an Atome dating sim game that's like on mobile. However, I got through it from like all of the weird like fan art memes and like jokes I've seen, and I finally wanted to know where it was from, and I never really played it because that's not really my thing anymore, but I still think the characters are really cool and the animations and the storyline are really interesting. Because I got into this fandom through the back door, I still don't quite know what happened, and if you guys want an interpretation of someone who was like kind of in the fandom but is very confused and is just watching everything go on fire right now, from what I understood happened in this very short tangent as we're watching the speed paint go by, is that the community was already having a bit of problems with the developers, maybe not even the developer, the like company itself, and like making the big decisions about some favoritism going on with some of the characters, considering there are like a big cast and some of them were just a lot more favored and getting a lot more storylines and art than the others, and the community brought that up because that's fair. That's the feedback that you want from a community, especially in a game that is literally catered to what the community wants. Having that feedback is super crucial. However, around the same time they were giving these critiques and feedbacks is when the company kind of hit them with like the, hey, you're getting a new character, but because the fandom seemed so encapsulated with wanting them to fix a problem, they didn't really give the company the reaction that they wanted with this new character announcements. And in contrast with, I think the last character that they actually surprised them with was Silas, that was a really big reaction. So when the company didn't get the reaction that they wanted from the fandom, considering the fandom was already kind of critiquing them on the mistakes that they already made, it feels like the company did a huge panic 180 and just got rid of Valko because the fandom was like already in an uproar and they didn't want to like make it worse with the bad decisions. And yet in doing so, they made the worst decision, because I think basically dangling a really cool character concept in front of a fandom that's upset with you and then getting rid of them is not the right thing to do. I feel like from what I understood, they should have just listened to the critiques of the fandom and fixed their problems with some of the character stories and like the favoritism, and then introduced this character, and or just like introduced Valko and had him in while also like overlapping some of the stakes that they were trying to fix. I feel like just getting rid of this and starting this whole uproar on the internet was so crazy. I've never seen so many people mad, and with all the like threats, and I think the government is involved now. I don't know what's happening. This is genuinely like what it's like when you live beside like a very rowdy neighbor and you're just walking past seeing what's happening and you don't quite know what's happening because you're too scared to ask, but also like you could tell something is happening because there's a fire and like the police are involved now. That's what it's feeling like if you went through this fandom like I did. If anyone wants to go into the comments and correct me on what's actually going on, go ahead. I am more than happy to educate myself and look into this, but I think that's what's happening. And I think if I did play this game and he was in the game, he would be my bias, but I think he's kind of long gone right now, so I might as well draw him because he's pretty. Anyway, so I started off drawing a lot of poses for this because I kind of just wanted to see what I wanted to work with. I knew I wanted to experiment with like drawing more men, but particularly more like beefy men. I want to have a lot more diversity in the characters that I'm able to create, and that means kind of just like going off on other characters that I want to make fan art of that have like the body type that I want to learn how to draw. So I did want to use him as like a model for that because I know he's pretty beefy compared to the other characters in that game. No offense, Raphael. Valko seemed pretty interesting though, even though he's like low-key not in the game. Anyway, so I feel like my biggest mistake for the first half was definitely picking like a really boring pose, especially because we've seen in the trailers that he is actually like an active character and he is pretty like rowdy and stuff, so I feel like I definitely didn't show that in the pose. I feel like I just picked a very generic like standing pose, which in my head, I know at the time I was kind of just like, oh, I wanted it to be like very simple simple, very basic. I wanted to like figure out the texture and the features and illustrating the muscles more, so I didn't want to pick anything like too drastic, but I feel like that was definitely a detriment considering I feel like it's super stiff in the final piece, just like so boring. However, I will say that I think I did a pretty good job with some of the anatomy. However, I do think looking back, one of the biggest things that I did wrong is that like I didn't draw the curve of the spine, and so it's kind of weird because part of his body is like at an angle to the left. The way the head and the neck is, it's, I don't know, part of it just looks so twisted in like the spine because like the pelvis and the chest are like in this direction, and yet the head and like the arms, especially the like right arm, it feels like it's very straightforward, like it's not turned at all. So I definitely should have drawn like the skeletal structure underneath, or at least the spine. I don't know why I didn't draw the spine. That is literally the one thing that everyone and their mom tells you about, that you should draw the curve of the spine so that you're able to build off the chest and where the neck and the head fit, but oof. Anyway, so the thing with Valko is that he has really interesting features. I definitely knew that I accidentally got into the mainstreamness of like getting rid of some of those features, which I know is really messed up, but I feel like as an artist you do subconsciously get some of the like art things that you see other artists do, especially from like all of the art styles that you watch and draw. And as someone who watches a lot of anime, I accidentally get into the features of accidentally like minimizing the nose and like making the eyes like way too big and not focusing on the mouth, which was also a pretty big detriment considering I think Valko's features are very strong. He has like beautiful thick eyebrows. I really like his broad nose, which is weird because I didn't draw it like that, and I drew his eyes a bit bigger than I would. I know that I could definitely be like, oh, it's just part of my art style, but I don't want to take that cop out. I feel like that's not what I was going for here. And then I simplified his mouth, which is weird because he has very beautiful plump lips and I didn't draw that. And I also know that I definitely did the cop out because he has really nice like short hair, and I kind of did like an in-between of like making the longer bits in the front a bit more long so that it overall reads as like long-ish hair with bangs, and then like short hair in the back, which I think still overall reads as Valko, but like I definitely need to practice drawing more short hair. Now again, I feel like this pose was super stiff, and especially with like the phone, I think I was referencing that like one trailer where he was like talking on the phone and fighting, but he was literally fighting in the time, so I don't know why I didn't give him an action pose. And then I drew him like with the background inside, so it wasn't even like he was outside because I wanted to keep the mood lighting, but I also wanted to simplify it, and I also didn't really know how to draw the landscape of that area. I think my references were jostled around and random to really make a cohesive picture in my head, so I feel like that was definitely my other mistake. I should have spent a little bit more time making sure my references actually made sense. I think the base colors were fine in this piece, but I know that I wanted the overall read as warm. However, I went for like this weird gray purple situation, even though I wanted to go as more of like a warm tone, so I should have done like a warmer blue. So I don't know what I was thinking. Sometimes in art, it just takes you a while to remember all of the lessons that you've learned, and sometimes some of them will just, you know, go under the radar and you'll forget about stuff, and this was definitely one of the things that I forgot about because colors are still really hard for me to comprehend, and I should have just made sure that everything was overall reading as warm. But no, I did the wrong thing, and I kind of just like put down base colors without really thinking about it. So I think like the eyes and the hair and the skin color were really well, but like that shirt and that phone is like such a contrasting color that doesn't make sense. I do think I do try to fix it with more filters, but I think at the end it's still like overall reads as weird. So I'm not trying to be too harsh with myself. This is just part of the critiquing process because I do think I did some good things in this art piece still. There are just a lot of things that I did wrong, but it's okay because I'm learning for next time. So with rendering, I know my biggest mistake with this piece, because it was something that I was still new on, I made the mistake where I zoomed in too much. Especially during this piece, like especially with the hair and like the short tendrils, I zoomed in so much and it overall made the whole image, like illustration at the end, to me look very sporadic and put together because I wasn't reading the whole thing as its own picture. I just kept taking parts of it, like the hair and the skin and the shirt, as like their own thing, and when I finally put them together at the end, it just didn't look right. And I know this is definitely where it started from because the hair was taking me forever. Again, I'm usually keen to drawing longer hair just because when you zoom out enough, you're still able to work on like some of the details without having to zoom in and get like fixated on on that stuff, but it's still something I want to practice because I don't want all of my characters to have long hair. So I think next time I'll just try to work out a good situation of like how zoomed in I should be, or if I should like zoom in some parts but like overall just like keep zooming out once in a while just to make sure that it all reads right. But I think I still did a really good job with the colors regarding the hair. I think the gradient from like the purple to like bright pinks at the end looked really cool, so I'm really proud of myself for that. I think that was okay. I am still really upset with myself for not getting his features right because he has like a really unique square jawline and a broad nose. I think I did a pretty good job with his eyebrows, but because I made the eyes too big, it didn't really read off as like, oh, they are really prominent eyebrows. They just look like their normal size eyebrows, which was it's okay. It's okay. This is part of the process. I think rendering was pretty okay. I think I did wanted to have that like neon pink sign in the background, but I feel like in the foreground I should have had like a secondary light source that was still a bit warm, maybe like an orange, or in contrast with like the pink lighting, it should have been like a purple or something. I don't know. I feel like having a really good contrasting color that was a different color, because I just had the other light source coming from his phone be the same color as the neon sign pink in the background. Next time I want to work with two secondary colors. I will say, I will compliment myself here. I think the hair still turned out pretty good, but I think overall the hair still reads as like really spiky and fluffy. I also will compliment myself here. I don't know what happened, especially with the rendering and the skin. I think I did a really damn good job drawing those muscles, because goddamn, even now looking at it a couple of days later, damn, I don't know what happened there. They just look so good. I think the right arm looks a lot more better than the left arm because it was in a lot more shadow. Damn, I don't know what happened with the arms. Anyway, I don't know what happened with the other arm, but it was frustrating the hell out of me. I know part of it was definitely an anatomy problem because that arm was like way too low and like not foreshortened enough to be in that angle, and it made the hand like at an awkward angle of holding that phone, so I ended up redrawing the other arm because I was just not okay with it. Another thing that I feel like I messed up on was this compression shirt, which I feel like everyone and their artist friend knows is really fun to draw, mostly because you're able to see like the form of the character through the shirt while also like, you know, having a cool shirt, because I think compression shirts are really cool and they make everyone look hot. What? Anyway, regarding like the shadows and form, I wanted it to like be tight, but like not too tight, but also like Valko is really beefy under it, so it'll read off as tight either way, okay? He's just a beefy guy. I think the chest and like the collarbone was pretty good on the shirt. I don't know what happened to the abs, okay? I was looking at references, but I think like literally the chest down, the shirt looks so weird because I made the abs look like triangular, and that doesn't make any sense because they are abs and not shapes like that. So I think I definitely should have looked at like other references of tight fitting stuff around the abs, maybe not in a black. I think all of the black references definitely was a bit confusing, so maybe in like a gray or like a white I could see like a tight fitting shirt around someone like that. I'm sorry, Valko, I promise I like you. I'm not doing you any justice, and I'm so sorry for that. I tried really hard with the hand veins, okay? I don't know why. I just think they're cool, so I tried to add that in, and I think overall I would get like a C or something because I don't think they look quite right, but you could tell that I tried and that they're there. But I also feel like maybe I did them too small or like too detailed to look quite right. It also doesn't make sense because his hand in this pose is really relaxed, so there's kind of no reason for him to have those hand veins. Yeah. Anyway, and I did try to rework the face a bit, considering the fact that I still don't think it looks good. Again, I'm not trying to cop out and say like, oh, he doesn't fit my art style. I want him to fit my art style, excuse you. But I feel like I definitely need to work on more strengths on like elongating the face and maybe just like changing that jawline so that it actually looks squared off and straight as opposed to like this soft one. Plus he has really good like cheekbones, and the way his like face is sculpted, it's definitely like very sharp, and I didn't really get that. I think I overall like drew him very soft, which definitely didn't fit him. It fit the other characters a lot more when I used to draw them. Again, as an artist, I feel like it's really important to have these moments of clarity a couple days after an art piece, just to make sure that you are able to like look at it critically in a nice way and not like overly harsh with yourself after you just finished a piece and going all brain mushy. So I hope this video was still really helpful for you guys in figuring out like how to critique your art, how I critiqued my art, how I'm able to still like pull in these notes and make it still appealing for myself to just keep going and not making them too self-deprecating, because as much
as I don't think that this piece is my strongest, I do think that I learned a lot from it, that I'm able to keep going, and it's going to be fun and really, really entertaining for me to keep going and not just like do better, you know? Like, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was still entertaining, and maybe next time I'll do like a repaint of this, probably. I feel like I really need to do Valko with justice. Sorry, Valko. I hope they bring you back, please, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!